Socrates, I think it is well known, advised that people who write things down are prone to forgetting. And that may or may not be the case. I mean, we have offloaded a lot of information onto books and onto hard drives, and we have a lot of random access memory to all kinds of things. And people are sending satellites into space all the time. So was he right? Was he wrong? I think we're ultimately missing the point. I don't think that he was worried about forgetting so much as he was worried about being able to defend yourself and to achieve goals. Part of the Socratic mythology of how memory works is that we were gifted, perhaps from Nemesis, or maybe you pronounce it Nemesune or Nemesine, the goddess of memory. We were granted a block of wax in our souls, and in that wax we could write figures based on the alphabet. And that is part of how we remember things, and we need to practice that. And for Socrates, the ideal of that was through dialogue. And so it's said that he never wrote anything down, but of course the irony is, but it's not really an irony, I don't think, but people say it's ironic that Plato then wrote down everything that he said, and then Aristotle disagreed with a lot of it, and so discourse through writing is born. And Socrates didn't want that. He wanted discourse to continue through dialogue, through the dialectic, and for each and every one of us to be able to be fit in our discussions with others. And this is where I think that actually we should not dismiss Socrates and his warning at all. We should make ourselves as fit as possible. We just don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater necessarily by saying, oh, well, we're not going to use technology. We're not going to write anything down. We're not going to do any of that. I remember years ago being interviewed by Ben Cardell, and we were talking about the use of notebooks. I use a notebook all the time because writing is itself a memory aid. Not only does it help to encode memories better in the first place, but there's a lot of things where it's really not that useful to use mnemonics to memorize the information for a one-off task when you can write it down. Why not use that tool when I could save my use of mnemonics and the time to use them for memorizing glorious Sanskrit mantras, which is one of my favorite things to do, or work on some project of memorizing philosophical words in Latin or what have you. Nihil minus est, omnis occupati quam vivere. This is Seneca, and the idea that we busy ourselves with the busyness of life instead of the important things, which is what Socrates was urging us to do, so that when we need important things, it's ready to go. This is Dr. Anthony Metivier from magneticmerymethod.com, by the way. If you like this kind of information, this kind of thinking deeply and transformatively about what things mean or what might mean if we want to use them in different ways, get subscribed, hit that thumbs up if you haven't already. And part of the issue here too is the idea of community and not lacking meaning in our lives, which we see increasingly, this crisis people call all the time the meaning crisis. And I'm not sure if there's a meaning crisis if you're a person who is actively engaging in discourse with other people. The crisis is there, certainly, for anybody who is isolating themselves, is not able to remember information, is not able to speak with others because they can't access information, which is a memory problem, random access memory, so to speak. If you are embarrassed to speak with other people because you can't find the thoughts that you want, or you can't find that perfect word, and you're unwilling to just use the words that you do have, these are issues of memory, and memory training can help you get out of that prison. It's such a dark place to be. And this is a huge concern that Socrates had, is that people would simply not engage in communities, and it would be worse than forgetting. So there's the defensive measure, but there's also the joy of dialogue, the dialectic with others, to solve problems, but just to have fun, to engage, to test, to think critically, to go to the nth degree of, if there is truth, what would that truth be like? Or if there are many truths, what would be the nature of that truth? What would that be like? This is an extraordinary adventure. But if you just want to pass tests and exams and all that stuff, you're not really worried about the truth. You're worried about bells and whistles and prizes and incomes, and all those things are worth being worried about, believe me. But at the same time, it's missing out on so much of the richness that life has to offer if you can not only defend yourself, but enjoy community and meaningful community because you've helped make that meaning for yourself through engagement. So one of Socrates' beefs is that books can't talk back and paintings can't talk back. And this is true to a certain extent, but not anymore, because now our computers can talk back. We can use ChatGPT. And the question would be, would Socrates use ChatGPT? And I don't know the answer, but I know that when I've engaged with it, it's awfully disappointing, awfully quickly. And a lot of people have pointed out that one of the reasons why there's so much disappointment with using specifically text-generated artificial intelligences is that they don't have a point of view. They don't have lived experience. I would go one step further. It's that they don't create concepts. And Socrates was a great creator of concepts. A lot of people know the allegory of the cave. And if you don't, look it up. It's very memorable. It'll almost auto-memorize itself in your brain. If you've seen The Matrix and you can recall The Matrix, you've already got most of it already memorized anyway, because that movie is largely based on the allegory of the cave. But the point is that he was a creator of concepts in the dialogues that he made. And we should try to be creators of concepts as much as we can. And concepts are going to come from other concepts. So in part of that, being able to remember things and being able to engage with communities is that we will change the things that we find in the world. And one thing that I think Socrates was worried about quite deeply, and this has to do with the philosophy of the real, the form of the good, like a perfect place in heaven where everything is perfect and everything here on earth is a shadowy representation of those things. So the chair that I'm sitting on is inferior compared to the perfect version of the chair or chairness in the form of the good or heaven. And one of the things that Socrates is worried about us not recognizing things in this way, whether he's right or wrong is a different topic for a different day. But one thing he's worried about is what happens when a chair learns, an inferior copy of the perfect chair learns how to copy itself, and to do so without reference to perfection, to that perfect form. And this is the real anxiety with things like ChatGPT, because it will not be based on memory. It will be based on a copy of what memory is like, or at least what human memory is like. And then it will copy itself and copy itself and copy itself again and again and again. This is an anxiety that you see reflected in Douglas Hofstadter's wonderful, amazing Gödel Escher Bach, which if you haven't read, you may want to read that, because there's a story of the record that can't be broken. Before you know it, someone comes up with the record player that can break the record that can't be broken. And so then the game continues, and a new record comes that cannot be broken by the record player that can break the unbreakable record. And then another record player comes that can break it, and on and on and on, and this goes on forever and ever and ever. So Jacques Ellul, in the Technological Society, he started worrying about these kinds of problems, where you're going to have a technology that is built around a technology that is built around a technology that is built around a technology. And he says very clearly that this may lead to a situation where there's computer A and there's computer B, and there's going to be a need for computer A to get repaired from time to time. And the only way that computer A is going to be able to get itself repaired is to have a human bring computer B to computer A in order to enact the repairs. And that, Jacques Ellul says, is called slavery. Now, whether these things are right or wrong, I don't know. But a lot of people have pointed out that that's essentially where we're at right now. There's a lot of people who work for corporations that are essentially moving technology B to technology A. That's what they do. And they are in the service of copies of copies of copies of copies that are constantly in a game of breaking records, so to speak. This is what I think Socrates was worried about, and I think we have every reason to allow him to be right and wrong at the same time and take action on the right part. Train your memory. Train it so that you are able to speak in dialogue with real people in real time, and to remember, maybe not perfectly in the perfect words that you want to remember them when you want to remember them, but remember them well enough in alternative words so that you're in a state of flow with life itself. And that is the question of questions. Is technology not life? I mean, why do we divide these two things? Where does it come from other than reality? What is the opposite of reality that not reality would come from? I talk about that a little bit more when I talk about the artificial intelligence of Giordano Bruno through memory techniques like the memory palace and the memory wheel. And if you enjoyed this, hit this thumbs up, get subscribed if you're new here, and go ahead and watch that study of artificial intelligence. Really? When it comes to the art of memory, I think not. And I think Giordano Bruno in this beautiful book is where you can start to change your thinking around that as well. So go ahead and watch that next.